Hello? Hello? I don't know. Is
Is
it
it
working?
working?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Je pense qu'on peut lancer le PDF, s'il vous plaît, merci.
No, I don't think it will. I'll hold it up every once in a while.
Well,
Beautiful.
thank you for being here. So for our second conversation, I have with me the amazing Lola Flash and her new book, Believable, that was just published by the New Press. So it's a monograph that focuses on the 4-decade practice of the New York-based photographer who's been using the photographic image to challenge stereotypes and gender, sex, and racial norms since the beginning of their career. The book draws, as I just said, on the 4 decades of work from the cross-color images taken during the AIDS crisis in the 1980s and early 1990s, where they created stage erotic photographs of the queer community, to their large series of color portraits, including one of older, very striving women that I really enjoyed, and more recent work, which uses the framework of Afrofuturism to examine the intersection of black culture, technoculture, and science fiction. So Lola, thank you very much for being here first. And I wanted to know if first you could tell me a little more about the genesis of this project that's almost like a retrospective book and how you chose the series among all your work that's been going on for so long now.
Okay, so thank you. Nice to meet you. Um, Thank you. That's better? Okay. Can they turn the mic up? Maybe that could be helpful. Um, Thanks for coming, everybody. I'd like to dedicate this talk to all the families in Gaza and Israel who have lost their family members. Um, yeah. So the project came along because actually this is a series of books that they've been doing for a while now. And I was actually in the photograph in a book about older gay people. And so when I met with them to talk about doing being a part of that book, they asked me if I wanted to do my own book. So
Okay.
a couple of years passed, and finally I was able to get my own book. And so, as most artists, it was a great opportunity to have it. Yeah, we. I have to be honest. I used to be a high school teacher. I just retired about a year ago. So I really have to give all the credit to like the design and everything to the team, to the
Yeah.
EWS team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you like? 'Cause as we see in the back, so these are the series. But I saw that you have so much more work. Like, what struck you as what you had to choose to be shown as your work for in this book, where there's a particular.
Well, I feel like we did kind of a chronological look at my work. It's a really great feeling to have pretty much most of my work in one book. So and I think initially I really wanted to have like a big coffee table book, like other people here. But I actually like this size because I could just put it in my backpack. I can take it around to show folks. I think it's like just more readily accessible.
Yes, to a
Um,
larger audience. Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, for someone who has 40-year long career, it's really was hard to kind of narrow down
Yes.
what images were going to go in. And again, because I was teaching, I really left it up to the team. I think they did a great job with
Okay.
choosing the images and just the whole design of it.
Okay.
Super happy with it.
So we're seeing portraits, and they've been an important medium for you, like one of your main ones, just to document Black, Brown, queer, trans, and gender fluid communities, which just we see a many portrait series in the book. However, in the last series that will appear a bit further down, there is a departure from that for you because you touch on Afrofuturism and science fiction through the creation of an alter ego, if we can use that word. That's called, I hope I pronounce it well, Sizigi. It's a mythical gender fluid being that is represented by yourself. You do not use someone else. When and why did you start working on this series that's like more grounded in fiction than pure like documentation or portraits?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to back up a bit, the portraits that I worked on for most of my life were really in order to see myself, growing up black, queer, and female. Um, and again, I'm very happy that I'm here at Paris Photo, but one only needs to look around to see the lack of representation of people that look like me and some of my brown friends out there. Um, and so I really, that was my purpose, was really just to show the beauty in my communities and just to show the strength and the pride that we have. And that's kind of what kept me going, that along with the love of my family and my friends. And so when I started to do Syzygy, it was, you're right, it was a total departure. And really, I thought it was just going to be a one-off. So this was the first picture I took for Syzygy. And it was because a friend of mine, Jayashri, she was organizing a show. She was curating a show at the Ford Foundation, and she said that she was doing something around Afrofuturism, and if I wanted to be in it, I could, just make something in like 2 weeks, and if she liked it, she put it in the show.
Okay.
So I was on my way to a residency in Woodstock, and so I thought, okay, Afrofuturism. I thought helmet for the future. But then when I saw that, I mean, this is honestly how it came together. That I saw the helmet had orange trim on it, so I thought, all right, here it is. I thought I'll go ahead and use my prison uniform. Many uniforms in America have used prison uniforms. I have been obsessed with the incarceration system in America. Once again, most of the folks that are in those jails look like me. And the exponential rate, I don't know if anyone has ever seen the 13th by
Yes.
what's
By
her name?
Ava.
Yeah, by Ava. I couldn't even watch the end of it because it's just ridiculous how many people are in jail for nothing really, for walking while black, as I like to say. So I thought that I would use one of my prison uniforms, and then of course I got the handcuff to represent the freedom or lack of freedom. So it's sort of like I feel like the symbols are just very kind of simple that anyone can kind of read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually used to enjoy showing my students at school and seeing if they were able to sort of like uncover what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when, that was in 2019, and then when COVID came in 2020, one of my friends said, why don't you continue doing that series and use that sort of surreal New York? Because, I mean, New York was like, there was no one anywhere. I went to Grand Central Station, and there was like no one in Grand Central Station, So I kind of went to like Times Square, a lot of the sort of iconic locations, and started photographing myself. And then just to back up really quickly, I started using myself because, again, I was in Woodstock, and I kind of looked around, and there's not a lot of black people in Woodstock. It's a lovely little town in New York, but I just thought, okay, well, I guess it's going to be me. And so that's just how it kind of started. It's interesting. I feel like the way that art happens, it's just sometimes it's just kind of magical. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so yeah, so that's pretty much how it started. And I'm really excited doing something a little bit different because I feel like my portraits, I worked on really making them very classic. There's Coho. I feel like I was working towards being like a modern day James Van Der Zee. I use a large format camera, I use film, and I was really dedicated to it. Especially like nowadays, I feel like there are a lot of artists that that use a lot of different materials, and I think that's great. But I was sort of like I'm going to use my 4x5 camera, I'm going to use film, and I'm just going to keep on this like very kind of traditional track
Yes.
of portraiture. But, we all change, and I decided that, to be honest with you, I got this Fuji film GFX 100 film camera, and it's one of the most beautiful cameras I've ever had. So I think like as an artist again that you have to like love the equipment that you're working with. And I wasn't really sold on the digital camera. I won't say what brand I had, but I wasn't really sold on it. I didn't love it. But as soon as I saw that camera, I was just like, oh my God, I love this thing. So it feels a little bit like a sort of hybrid between film and digital for me. I mean, it's not quite film, but I sort of somehow have convinced myself that it's that way. Yeah.
And so you're doing this series. Are you gonna keep going in that direction, or was this just like an experiment for you?
Yeah, with Syzygy,
We're still on the portraits.
yeah, this one here is called Surmise. This is about gender fluid folks like myself. Sometimes even like that person there identifies as a lesbian. But I think like nowadays, because there's so many transgender folks out there, which I love, and I have a lot of friends that are, I'm actually a woman that looks like this. So, yes, Syzygy is going to continue. I feel like the third chapter is I really wanted to be in the continent of Africa, because if we're talking about Afrofuturism, I've done a lot in America. I've actually done some in London. I haven't done anything in Paris yet. Yeah, that one's Joshua Tree. And so I feel like to really kind of ground it, to give it real legs, I think that that's where I would like to go next. So I've been applying to grants and residencies. And if anyone out there feels like donating some money to the Lola Flash Fund, please help me get there. Because I think I really do believe it's going to be like, walking in the footsteps of my relatives. I think it's just going to just really make this like,
work. Yeah.
I have a really strong kind of ending to it. But to be honest with you, I don't really. I have so many, all of the series that you have seen, actually are ongoing. The one on the rooftops I started in 2002. I have a global approach to my work, and so even like the Older Ladies series,
Yes.
I would love to be able to photograph, it in other countries. Here in Paris would be a nice place to start.
Yes, they have really
yeah.
nice
Yeah.
old ladies here. I just wanted to have to ask you another question that seemed a bit important. Like, reading some of your interviews, like aside from like queer survival and living, you describe queer joy as central to your practice, and I wanted to know how you find those spaces for like freedom and joy within the photographic medium, and if there were some influences for you to like grab those spaces.
Right. Well, my friend here, Polemy, I was listening to her talk, and she was talking about how joy really just takes so many different ways. There's so many different kinds of joy. I think part of what I feel like I've given my community is the fact that I see them, and I see them as who they are, not what society tells them. And I give them a space to just like feel beautiful. Like when people see me coming through the door with my big old 4x5, they know that that I see their beauty. So I feel like for 2 hours that I'm with them, they can feel beautiful. And as a black person, even though your family and your friends think you're beautiful, as you know, especially in America, you can walk out on the street and be shot. I mean, you could sit in your living room and be shot, right? And so, I mean, I've been arrested for walking by black, and I've been pulled over in my car when I had a car like in London and even in New York. Just, and the first thing they say is, like, I say, "What's the problem, officer?" And they say, "Oh, nothing, where's your registration?" So here I am, someone with like 3 degrees, you know what I mean, always had a job, and the first thing they think is that I've stolen a car, you know what I mean? So I feel like just giving people that like safe space has been one of the ways that I see the joy. And then also just being able to, now that my work is in museums, people can come and see their faces in museums.
Different representation in public spaces.
Or even like younger queer folks. When I was growing up, there was just nothing like that in the museums. And so that's the kind of joy I feel like I'm bringing to the community. And I never thought of it actually as documentary. I went to a fine art college, so I always felt like I was a fine artist.
Yeah.
But now, now that I'm a senior citizen, I'm looking at some of these images, and I'm like, wow, like there's a Walkman in a picture, like I never thought I'm going to put this Walkman in this image, and then 40 years later, people are going to be like, what's that? That's so smart, But it's just the way that fashion changes and fashion dates things. So
Yes, of
yeah,
course.
so now I look back, and I think actually it's kind of cool that I've documented my community in that way.
Yeah,
Proud of myself.
I love your early photographs.
Yeah, so
you
that's like the
unlinked.
picture I have on myself here, cross color.
Yeah.
And these pictures, can we talk about it briefly?
Yeah, very briefly. Yeah.
So this was a mistake. Twinning. This was a mistake, which I think a lot of times a lot of art starts off being. So basically, I used the wrong paper. So I printed a slide onto negative paper, and I got negative color. So I call it cross color because the word negative's negative.
Yeah.
And so just really in a nutshell, what I was doing was changing warm colors into cool colors, black into white. And so in that sense, black people into white people into black people. And then I realized I could make people purple, orange, and blue, and really moving ourselves away from the binary idea of race. So now we're just looking at human beings. And sometimes even gender can kind of like blend. So it sort of takes away a lot of the sort of judgmental biases that we have as a society. Yeah, so it's stayed under my bed for, this is hanging at Karen Jenkins Johnson Gallery. Thank you, Karen, for letting me be here. We're at CO1, so if you're feeling the need to buy a cross-color picture or some of the other photographs that are in there, if you actually, seriously, if you actually want to see them, because even though this is beautiful screen, it's nothing like seeing the real
it's
thing.
not the same.
So we're in CO1 if you'd like to come visit.
Do you have a book signing at one point or no?
I don't have one here.
Okay.
No. Oh, we do?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, we do.
So there are books available at the booth if you want.
Yes.
Well, I think that's all our time.
Okay, I just have one thing to say.
Yes.
I was going to give a lucky audience member, if you can guess a number between 1 and 100, this is all yours, and I'll sign it for you. So just start hollering it out. Who said 50? You did? You said 50? Okay, it's all yours. It was 51. That's close enough.
Well, congratulations.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
everybody. I
Lola.
hope you have a great rest of the evening. Merci.